You ever found yourself so tired you could hardly stay awake? I mean, maybe you've gone to a concert, or maybe you've gone to see your kids or your grandkids sometime in a musical, and you've had a long day at work, and you get to that musical, you get to that band concert or that choir concert or whatever it is, and that kids play, and you're trying to stay engaged, you're trying to listen, you're trying to show like you're that interested parent or grandparent, only to get into that perfect environment, and you're fighting all you can to stay awake, but you fall asleep. What about worship? You ever maybe tried to you get into worship and you're trying to stay engaged, and you've spent some time singing and the various part of worship, and you get there and it's time for the teaching or the preaching time, and you're ready for it. You think you're ready for it, but at the same time you get comfortable in the comforts of the setting of the room, and next thing you know, you're asleep. Several years ago, I was speaking at a church. Worship team had done an amazing job on that specific Sunday morning of leading us into the presence of God. You could feel what I thought was just the Spirit of the Lord moving in the room. The balcony was full. The bottom level was people. There was just a certain surge, excitement in the room. And I got up to speak, and I was about 3 or 4 minutes into the message, and I heard what appeared to me like the sound of snoring. A few minutes later, I connected with this dude that was on the front row, and that was, my ears hadn't failed me. He was sound asleep. But he wasn't just asleep. He had his legs he was lounging there on the front row. And he had his head kicked back, I guess, and his mouth was wide open, and he was sound asleep. He was sawing logs. And I couldn't help it. I was trying to stay engaged in the message, but inside, I'll have to tell you, I was laughing so hard. Just laughing so hard. I think we all can relate to that in some time in our life. Just like this past weekend. And we spent some time through our miracle series talking about a time in the early church where we saw Paul preaching. And it was probably, again, because of the atmosphere in the room, we see there that they had, because of the lighting, and this dude is sitting in the windowsill, and I'm sure he's trying to stay engaged in Paul's message, but Scripture tells us he falls asleep. And he falls in such a deep sleep that he falls out of the window, falls 3 stories, and actually dies. And we talked about how Paul stopped preaching, he goes down, and this young man that had fallen asleep, he comes back to life. And we see that the church goes back up, and they take part in the Lord's Supper, and then they make sure this guy that had fallen asleep and died and now back to life, he gets home, and it says that there's some relief amongst the church. Some relief. Well, when I think about all this, and again, if you haven't been able to be a part of our weekend or this past weekend, then let me encourage you, just go on over and listen to this message, whether it be at the end of this video of Weekend Thoughts, or you just hit pause right now and you come back and you catch up later on after you've listened to this past weekend's message. But I can't help but think in my mind that maybe the next time the church came together, or maybe a few months removed from this time, or maybe even years, that this was a topic of conversation. People like to be like, hey, you remember when Eutychus fell asleep, and you remember when he fell out of the window and Paul brought him back to life, and all these different, you remember, maybe it was a time, maybe people would actually, I can't imagine people not teasing Paul about this later on in his ministry. I just think this probably spread. This probably was something that brought the church joy, laughter, excitement, as they talked about this specific time in the life of the church. I wish I had maybe, if you will, a deeper thought for this week. But this thought maybe is deeper than we want to give it credit. When's the last time you laughed? When's the last time, maybe whether it be individually or a community of believers, we allowed ourselves to experience the joy of the Lord and laughter and excitement. When's the last time we allowed that to take place? You know, it says that the joy of the Lord is our strength. As we begin a new week, as we go into Monday and Tuesday or Wednesday, whenever you're seeing this video, you know, it says that you know, we talk about this is the day, whatever that day is for you. This is the day the Lord hath made. I will rejoice and be glad in it. You know, so often we look at the first part of the week and we go, oh, it's Monday. I can't believe it's Monday. Or it's Tuesday. Instead of the realization that this day, this Monday, this Tuesday, this Wednesday, that God has given it to us. This is the day that the Lord hath made. I'm going to rejoice and be glad in it. And so here's the thing. Here's the challenge for us this week. To search out that joy in the Lord. And I want to just challenge you to allow yourself to let go this week and to laugh. Maybe not to take yourself so seriously. Maybe as a church, we don't take ourselves so seriously. That we just laugh. And we experience the joy of the Lord. And for some of us, maybe it's been a long time since we've allowed ourselves to do that. And maybe it's hard for some of us because of the different scars and the different struggles of life to allow ourselves to experience that joy. I know as a parent, some early on in the life, in Susan and I's life as parents, and some advice that I received as a dad was that make sure that I'm present. Make sure as a parent that I'm present. And the second part of that advice was, always remember, Jonathan, relationship over rules. Relationship always trumps rules. And I think both of those actually apply to what we're talking about right now in our weekend thoughts. Because so often we're not present. Therefore, we don't allow ourselves to experience joy. We don't allow ourselves to laugh. We're stuck in the past, or we're looking for the future, or we're looking even in our relationship with God for the next big thing, or we're looking for God to move this and that we're not actually present with God. We're not actually present in worship. We're not actually present as a community to really just enjoy the moment. We're looking for the next thing. Or the other part of that advice is that we are, instead of really working and enjoying the relationship with one another, laughing with one another, maybe even crying with one another, and all these various things, we are so taken by the rule aspect of it, by the regulation, by all these various things that we're not really concentrating. We're not really present on the relationship. Therefore, we're not experiencing the joy and the laughter and the excitement that comes about from the church. So I just want to encourage us this week that we will allow ourselves to experience the joy of the Lord. Maybe sharing some of these stories that maybe from that just kind of brings laughter to our lives from that standpoint. I can remember even for our church here at Central when I was a kid growing up in this specific church. People used to have their pillows all around the church pews and different things, and we came up with this idea of rearranging those pillows one weekend. And I can't, that Sunday morning when people walked in and they were going to their seats and they saw that the pillow or their seat had been moved, it just totally put everybody in chaos. And we were laughing as kids. We thought it was hilarious, but the people didn't think it was so hilarious. And definitely my dad didn't think it was that funny. I think back on it now. Stories like that, they make me laugh. They make me chuckle. They were fun. And we need to reflect on that. We need to be present in that. We need to make ourselves available in that. The relational part of that. Don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so hard on the church. I just finished sharing in a time in a text, a conversation between one of our kids and one of my children. and there's a thing that they're going through in their life right now. And I said, just be present, enjoy it. You only get your first one time, so enjoy it. Be present in it. Have fun, and don't be so hard on yourself. We're way too hard on ourselves. We're way too hard on ourselves and on the church and just all this. So may we this week experience the joy of the Lord. May we this week allow ourselves to experience the joy of the Lord. You guys have a great week. Bye.